Hey there, greetings to my people from here at the Great Start Studio, where all of my drumming dreams are coming true. It's true. So this is where I'm shooting a video of the entire instructional series here in the studio, the 13 volumes of the London's Great Start Drum Set series. It's printed and the Kindle versions are available on Amazon as well as on my website, which is London's Great Start Drum Set. You can go there and check it all out. All my new videos from the studio will be available on that website for online lessons. Today I'm going to be talking about revealing some of my original drum heroes, what I call the Artistic Influence series. Drummers that I can actually see some of their playing in mine, that they've influenced me to that level. Drummers who truly changed my playing for the better, all the way through. There's some influence there in my actual hands and feet when I play. If in the studio, if I made posters of all the tribute, as a tribute to all the people, it'd just be every inch of every wall would be covered. It's just that these are the ones that have really, really influenced me in some foundational sort of way. So I made these posters as a tribute and a reminder of these great players. They're in my office. I'll be showing you. There's just too many to cover them all, but a handful that have really actually, I can see in my playing. There's so many great players who have inspired me in my drumming, but these are the select ones that have some way become a part of my style, my diversity, my teaching, my writing, and helped me develop my unique voice, which is a hard thing to find. You have to really listen inside. So anyway, enjoy the whole Artistic Influence series, and I'll be running them down, and I'll see you at the end. So next up on my office poster video series of inspiration is Vinnie Colaiuta. Vinnie Colaiuta, I don't need to go through like his discography. It would take longer than I have even for this video. If anybody just needs to look, just go to his site and he's got a discography that just goes on and on through far more projects than you could shake a stick at. He's been on more drum covers, magazines, and written about, transcribed. The world knows about Vinnie Colaiuta. Vinnie, my purpose here is to say what it is that these drummers have contributed to me personally that actually has resulted in my playing. Vinnie goes all the way back. Like, Frank Zappa, he's got the legendary brand there. And then from there, he just went everywhere, right? I didn't know about any of that stuff except through Modern Drummer magazine. He's one of these guys I just kept reading about, seeing a transcription of, a solo of, a breakdown of, a groove of, and he just became more and more interesting on the page. And I'm sure I must have heard him play in all sorts of things I had no idea that I was him playing in. But all the way forward, all the way to Sting. You got the Police, they break up, Sting goes off and does his own thing. He starts making records. Once again, all those guys, Omar, Manu, all of those guys that Sting had hired, just an unbelievable, endless source of inspiration for me in sort of the pseudo-pop, got lots of ethnic flavors in there, feels, time signatures. Then comes Sting's 10 Sumner's Tales with Vinnie playing. That was a flashpoint for me, for Vinnie. That's where Vinnie won me over in every possible way. For years, I used to say, everybody go, what drummer is the guy that, if you could be any drummer, right? What guy would you be? And I was like, I'd be Vinnie. I would be Vinnie. Vinnie's got he's got so much to talk about. But just on his work on 10 Sumner's Tales, there is so much beauty in that work. They're all magnificent. And he is free. He's in the setting where he is free. He's got the history of Sting's work that he can step into. He knows what the parameters are that he's expected to do. He's Vinnie Colaiuta. Everybody knows they're trusting him to do his thing and still honor the music, which he does. He's one of those guys. He's an all-round stylist. Like I've been saying, is one of the early things that I really wanted to get to where so that somebody would just call you and you could just take a job and then find out what the style is. Vinny's that guy. That's what I'm saying. He's like Faith Hill, the Megadeth, the Herbie Hancock, and back, and every which way, right? So that is something huge to emulate. It's huge that anybody would want to do that, and it's huge as a task. As a task, it's enormous. I don't think people really understand the depth of being so well-versed all the way around the stylistic wheel. It's an immense task. It's like once you start down that path, I love the quote that says, don't try to measure the mountain, the height of the mountain, until you reach the top. Because you can't. You can't. I remember one time we were camping and they're at this lake and there's these two kind of, I don't know, they call them mountains. They seem like hills. And all of us kids just decided, hey, today we're just gonna go climb that hill, that mountain. All day we were going through the forest and we hadn't even got near it and it was dark, right? It looks like it's big. It's big and it grabs all of your attention, but it is farther away than you think. When these guys are so deep in their learning and their experience that you just can't know from the bottom how far that is. In some ways, that's really good when you're starting because we're so naive that we just jump in and we think, man, I'm going to pound this out in the next 6 months and I'm going to be Vinnie Colaiuta. Yeah, guess again, right? 6 months go by, 6 years go by, a lifetime goes by, and there's only one Vinnie Colaiuta, right? I mean, it's just an enormous amount of work and experience there that really only he has. I mean, you could be you, right? But you're never going to be him, right? So, but the idea of being a well-rounded, broadly attractive player in many genres, you got to know all the styles. You got to be versed in, you got to be able to, you got to have a situation where you can't. You got to have all your ducks in a row for meters. And man, that is one deep player. Just start looking into it and you'll see. It came together for me in the work with Sting. That record, more than anything else I ever had back in the day, I think it was 93. So it's been out a while. And this is where I was putting all these individual songs down to rehearse every day. It was every song on that record. And they all feel so good and they're all so diverse. The one thing that stood out that Vinnie did that I'll always think of Vinnie when this happens is Sting has a way of playing an odd metered song that still has a melody that is very, very singable. It's not fusion. He's just playing something that is metrically unusual. And Vinnie came in and he's hearing like quarter notes pass across a 7/8 while he's playing the 7/8, and that makes the quarter notes fall on the other side on the ands in the next measure. That is a beauty. It's a beauty because it isn't fusion. It's something it gives it this sort of quarter note pulse even right across the bar line. And I was just so hooked on that idea. When you play open-handed and you have your right hand able to swing over to the bell and still do the snare, or your left is coming over from the hi-hat to the snare, your hands are open to have those kind of contributions to the songs that you play, like all the time. They're just open. And that kind of work is so beautifully organized. Now, on the other side of the spectrum, of course, Vinnie can turn it on and burn down the house, right? He can put notes and metrics and modulations, note rhythmic phrases right next to each other. I've always said that you have to have a certain sort of internal grid of what's going on, right? So you try to instill that. Let's say you get the students and they empirically hear themselves and feel themselves count 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a, and you do that for a while, a number of weeks, and it isn't very long. And that empirical knowledge of your senses, hearing it and feeling it and saying it, you internalize it, and then now you have it as an internal clock that's much stronger because you've actually done it. You're not waiting for the metronome to do it. You've actually counted it, and now that becomes part of how the solidity of that grid. He's got this grid, like let's just say 16th notes, okay? And you have 8th notes and 16th notes. 8th notes are basically one step removed in 4s and 2s away. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4. It's just a massive amount of music that passes between 8th notes and 16th notes together to build rhythms. That's only what I would call one step removed. But when you have people that can do the extra leap, they can leap from quarter notes over 8th notes into 16th notes, quarter notes over 8th notes and 16th notes into 32nd notes, or 32nd notes leaping over into 8th note triplets divided into 2s. You see what I'm saying? You are so aware of how the grids work that you are inside of the numbers. Vinnie is that guy. He's that guy that can turn on the numbers and play outside, or he can craft a beautiful part like in those songs, like he's done for many artists, where his job is to lay it down. His work with Jeff Beck, at Ronnie Scott's, there with Tal Wickenfield. That show is so live, right? And he's playing, Jeff Beck is playing unbelievably delicately. And then sometimes Vinnie would just completely lay out, come in with the super light texture to augment that. And then next thing you know, they turn around and they're playing Space Boogie. That was a Simon Phillips track way back in the day that he recorded. But of course, Vinnie's playing it like he's been playing it his whole life, right? Playing in and out of it, just double bassing, shuffling it, catching all the punches. It's really, really deep, great stuff. That's the kind of stuff where you go, I want to emulate that kind of work in me. When I see somebody with that kind of depth, you just basically bow and go, I totally respect that. I want to somehow acquire that kind of level of playing, of confidence. He's got that in all sorts of directions. You don't really think of Vinnie as a double bass player. He plays double bass a lot. It comes up a lot. And it's not because it's his cheater beater and he has to go to double bass because he can't do it with a single bass. He just tons with a single bass. And I've always said this, is you practice your single bass all the way until you can't make it do anymore, right? You get the absolute most out of the foot, the technique, the pedal, and then if you have to, then you can go to double bass. Double bass is like having one hand that's really, really technically proficient. You can play everything with one hand. Why would you use two hands if you could use one hand? See what I'm saying? Then you still have another hand to contribute with in another way. But if you have to, because of the tempo or the complexity of the rhythmic complexity, then you can, it's like putting two hands on the snare drum. So obvious. Vinnie's a completely well-rounded guy. I'm so glad that there are people that play full spectrum like Vinnie does and play double bass, because for whatever reason, double bass is kind of ostracized in some circles. And I've never understood that. I've never understood it at all. It's like they treat it like you're like a metalhead if you have double bass. Double bass is just like saying I'm using two hands on the snare. There's just more options there for low. And when I hear the drum set, I hear low end. I don't think of it through the snare drum. I think of it through the low end. I don't know why. I always have. And that's so appealing to have somebody who's as deep in every direction as Vinnie and still very versed in the double bass work, right? So, Vinnie, I owe you so much. That work with Sting was just beautiful, and it just transformed me into completely giving myself over to loving your work. Thank you so much for that, and keep up the good work.